Good morning, Morning Manna family. I'm so excited that you're alongside with me as we look at the story of Jonah. 4 chapters in Jonah. Every one of us knows the story. We know it's the story of Jonah in the belly of the whale. It's broader than that. It's the story of God's compassion, God's call for people who are far from Him to come to know Him. It's the story of Jonah running, and then walking along with God unwillingly in the midst of that call. But right in the middle is the story that makes it famous. There are the mariners, and they are trying to save Jonah's life. They've come to realize that he is the reason why they're experiencing this storm that's beyond comprehension. So they're doing everything they can to try to get back to dry land, and yet God is going, no, I'm in the midst of this storm. And so they throw Jonah into the tempest, into the waves, into the sea where he is certain to drown. And God sends a rescue. Now I imagine if you or if I were in Jonah's spot, we'd be praying for a rescue. Just think about what it would be like to be tossed into this huge storm as the waves are high and they're rolling and you can't get a breath and you feel like you're drowning and you're struggling to breathe and swim and the rest of it. And he's got to be crying out, even though he's probably at this point cranky at God. He's trying to run from God's plan for his life. Still, he's crying out for rescue, and then he gets swallowed by a great fish, by a whale. That cannot be the rescue that he had in mind. And the truth is, probably all of us, somewhere along the way, maybe when we've been running from God, when we're stuck in the midst of this situation or that situation, and we cry out for God to rescue us. And then something shifts and something changes, and maybe it seems darker than it was before, and only upon reflection do we realize that it was actually God's rescue. Here's the point. God's rescue does not have to match your and my expectation. I got to tell you, I feel like it does. There's so many times where I've prayed, hey God, you got to help me out here. You got to give me somehow some provision, because there's more month at the end of the money and I don't know how to make all this work. And so I figure it's got to look like X, Y, and Z. It's got to line up just this way. And yet God sends rescue in a completely different fashion, something I wasn't expecting. I think there's a principle for us in the midst of this, and that is to learn to recognize God when He moves. Learn to recognize His voice. Learn to recognize His fingerprints on what's going on in our lives. So when His rescue doesn't look like what we wanted, we still see it's God, and we respond to what God is doing. So have those devotions like you're having today, and learn to hear His voice, and learn to look for Him, and learn His nature so you recognize Him when He shows up. And then we're prepared to respond to His rescue, whether it matches our expectation or not. God bless you guys.